Hey, Dr. Flora here. I want to give you another personal story about some of the readings that you'll be doing this week as it relates to diversity, equity, access, and inclusion. And keep in mind that Dr. Nolan and Dr. Rhoda, I truly esteem their ability to articulate at the national landscape and the state level landscape kind of the very high policy goals and overarching theoretical frameworks that you'll be using in this class. The tiny piece that I feel like I can contribute to this class is my local or institutional level policy experience. And so I've recorded another introduction here just to tell you a few stories about my interactions at a local institutional level policy kind of helping to create policy and being part of policy development at the local level in response to some pretty public diversity crises at the time. So when I came on board in the provost office, we had just come off of an embroiled board of visitors who, it was factioned actually. We had hired a senior administrator who had a female partner, and the very normal practice of hiring and creating partner benefit plan where we would dual career hire that partner into a faculty role or sometimes an administrative role wherever their skill set lie. But it had been a pretty uncomfortable public dilemma because some of the board members did not like that. And so that was one thing that was happening. The second thing that had happened was that an African American faculty member who was very well loved was not tenured on the campus. The third thing that had happened before I came on board was that female faculty, particularly junior female faculty in some of the engineering departments, were leaving. They were being recruited elsewhere. And in their exit interviews, they were citing incivility really, but in general, it was that the climate and the culture of those departments were not warm and welcoming to females, particularly females with children, and that they felt the expectations set before them were just untenable and could not be successful and have children in that department. And then sort of the fourth thing that was going on was that the institution had added an optional, and the key word is optional, reporting category in the tenure and promotion dossier called Contributions to Diversity. It was completely optional, and I want you to familiarize yourself with what we call the diversity tax in tenure and promotion, because you'll understand as you read about the diversity tax and committee service why the institution would advance an optional reporting category. We really wanted to make it a place where individuals who are engaged in committee service or mentoring components or other areas could have a place to report that work and be recognized for that work in their tenure and promotion process. However, there were some faculty who were really upset that we had added that optional reporting category on the tenure and promotion dossier. So the provost had arrived from California, and he was seeing this happening under his watch, and he was quite appalled, to be honest with you. So one of the first things he did was to create a campus diversity task force. And out of the recommendations of that task force is where I'm transitioning you into some of the reading for this area that I have uploaded. One of the recommendations is that, yes, we can have human resource sponsored programs, those mandated training programs, but typically those mandated training programs do not get at the campus-wide systemic cultural infusion that we hope when it comes to working with academics, and we all know how academics think and work. So one of the recommendations was that there would be an academic conference related to diversity and inclusion, which was very successful. And it was during one of those academic conferences that I was able to go meet and hear Dr. Damon Williams speak of inclusive excellence. I would have to say his inclusive excellence framework really changed my thinking around diversity and access from a pull out and support mentality to an include the entire institution mentality. And so the readings that you're reading this week and next week related to diversity, access, inclusion, specifically the Williamsburger and McClendon Inclusive Excellence article, contains a framework that many universities during that time and since have used in their strategic planning. The framework truly shifted my thinking around this area of access and inclusion and creating a warm and welcoming campus climate for all. A few other policy, institutional, local level policy changes that came out of that diversity task force was that we hired a senior diversity officer whose style and mannerism and approach made it very safe to be politically incorrect and to talk about race. And that was one of the things we learned, that if we're also afraid to talk, we can't help challenge each other's assumptions and opinions in a safe manner. And especially at the academic administrator level, it has to be safe behind closed doors to be able to have those conversations. And so this senior diversity officer, who, by the way, has since just been hired at Missouri, in the state of Missouri, for their post-crisis intervention, was the kind of personality that the institution needed to have those conversations. The university also applied for and received some major NSF grants to help advance women in STEM fields. And so we put more focus and effort on the campus climate environment for women, specifically women and young women with children. We created a stop the tenure clock policy that would go for both men and women who had either adopted or had a child. So another policy lever that we felt like would help make the campus more inclusive, warm, and welcoming. We also held local child care provider slots in order to recruit and attract people to our campus. And so if we had an all-star who was visiting and, people with children care about where their kids will go to daycare, we could say with assurance that we had held some slots, and that if they chose to come to our university or institution, that we could help them get their kids in an excellent place of childcare. And I know that these are some considerations that we may not think about at local level policy discussions, but all of these things kind of come together to build a support system for your campus climate and to help support the faculty and the staff who are working on your college campuses. Lastly, the senior administrator, who had taken so much upon hire, was given monies to really build what I would call a landmark building. And it wasn't so explicit as it was implicitly supporting the fact that she had chosen to come amidst all of the embattlement that had happened. And the landmark building also was very explicitly in support of all students and creating a safe, warm, welcoming environment. And so those are the kinds of local level policy responses to access, inclusion, diversity, and creating a warm and welcoming campus environment. I have to say that was a long time ago, really, in the higher education world. That was back in 2007, and we've all evolved in our thinking related to diversity and access, but we do have a long way to go. And so as we get together and as we read these very practical articles related to how senior leaders can respond to diversity, access, inclusion, and campus crises, as well as leading that charge, being a leader who espouses appreciation for all walks of life, espouses a deep respect for different ways of thinking, I believe that sharing these personal experiences will only help us get better together. So I look forward to hearing your thoughts, your reactions to some of these policies in our weekend seminar sessions. And then truly in the community college system here in Tennessee, there's a rich opportunity for you all to cross-pollinate some of these local level policies that you're trying out at your campuses in order to share what's working and what's not working with each other. So that's all I have to add here. I want to thank you for listening, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Take care.